Hashem Na'aseh V'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We're back here from Yerushalayim HaKdosha during the times of war between Am Yisrael and the evil nation of Ishmael, Imach Shimam V'Zichram. But our holy Torah, Baruch Hashem, is winning the war for Am Yisrael, and BeEzrat HaShem, we're going to add to it tonight with some more insights about this week's parasha, Parashat VAYEIRA, which is actually where the war originally started several thousand years ago. Tonight's shiur is going to be for the Refuah Shlema and Hatzlacha Rabbah for our own very dear Rav, Rav Efraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Avi Mori David ben Esriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Jora, and all of Am Yisrael, all the righteous Noahis that continue to watch us and learn with us and support the organization to the best of their ability. Anyone that wants to donate to continue helping us with all the wonderful things that the organization is doing, please do by going to our one of our websites, BeEzratHashem.org, BeEzrat HASHEM.org. I see we're offline. Hold on a second. Also, if anyone wants to donate to the current campaign where we're helping different people that are struggling, but truly struggling, not people that just tell us they want more money, then all the tzitziot for the soldiers and the different things that people need here in Yisrael, please donate on the campaign bhchesed.org, bhchesed.org, or you could easily donate on the app, the BeEzrat HaShem app, or Facebook, or YouTube, or the many other avenues. Anyone that wants to donate, there are certainly ways to do it. Also, as a reminder for you guys to download the app. We had a major upgrade on the app, and Baruch Hashem, the new features that are available on it are certainly ones that are going to better people's lives. We're going to have more and more things added to it in the coming future, but the stuff that's been added to it right now is certainly more than enough for anyone to really get what what they need from the Torah, Baruch Hashem. Right now, for our team, just so you know, the app looks like it's working, but the Facebook feed is showing me a black screen. So I'm not really sure why, but it's showing me a black screen. Not really sure what's going on here. Hold on a second. This is going to fix it. All right. Facebook Live is good. You see me? Okay. For me, it's showing black screen. All right. So let's show. Okay. So we're gonna get started. BeEzrat HaShem, this works, and BeEzrat HaShem Na'aseh V'Natzliach. So with that being said, Baruch Hashem, we have a enormous parasha, Parashat VAYEIRA. After we were introduced to our forefather Avraham Avinu and got a little bit of a taste of some of the big nisyonot, the big trials and tribulations that Avraham Avinu went through, we realized that that was only a preparation for this next series of tests that Avraham Avinu got, culminating with the Akedat Yitzchak. Now, of course, everyone knows the Akedat Yitzchak story. You have it's at the end of the parasha, the last few paragraphs, the last aliyah, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu tests Avraham by telling him that he wants him to bring his son, his only son, the one he loves, Yitzchak, and bring him as an offering. Now, while everybody knows the story, perhaps the one thing that many people maybe have not really put together is that this particular Akedah is where the original source of the war between Ishmael's descendants and Yisrael. This is the source. While the many scholars that have studied Islam over the years have discussed many different types of attributes they gave to Muhammad, the one that created Islam. The one thing that everyone recognizes is that there are major problems with the Quran, because as I mentioned yesterday, what I learned from Dr. Kedar, that 11 times in the Quran, the people of Mecca, the scholars throughout the time of Muhammad, actually called him a person that's a plagiarist, meaning that he copied different parts of the Jewish people's holy Torah and called it his own. Now, of course, he responded in different ways. In one way, he responded to them by saying, no, they changed the Torah. We really have the truth because I got it from the angel Gabriel, which we'll get to in a second. And then others that didn't take his word for it, he simply slaughtered them. He slaughtered them. He raped their daughters. Some of them were underage kids, 9-year-old, 6-year-old girls that this evil Muhammad raped. And this is in the books. This is in their books. This is not even something that you have to look far for. There are even major scholars that say that it's very possible that similar to Yeshu Yimach Shemo V'Zichro, that's questionable whether he existed or not, because there's no writings by anybody other than the Jewish sages at the time that writes favorably or unfavorably about Jesus at the time he lived, because the New Testament was written, anywhere from 100 to 300 years after Jesus, Yimach Shemo, died. And actually the same concept, is the same thing, is with Muhammad, where the first 200 years of Islam was, in essence, it was transmitted orally. There was nothing actually written by Muhammad, which is not a surprise because, as everyone knows, he was illiterate. He didn't know how to read or write. And actually, Islam was transmitted orally for the first couple of 100 years after Muhammad died. And once one of the people, one of the so-called scholars, wrote it down, he was actually tormented, and they eventually killed him because he took away the sustenance, the living, the parnasah of the so-called Islamic scholars that would transmit it orally for money. This is one of the things that I know that many people don't know. As many people think that Muhammad actually wrote the Quran. He didn't. So it's actually a couple hundred years after he died. Now, one of the things that is even critical and relevant to us is that the war between Ishmael's descendants and our people, the Jewish people, begins with this week's parasha, because as he plagiarized the Torah by saying that God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh, and he mentions the names of Adam and Chava, and all the different stories that took place, the Tsunam, which is what they call the flood of Noach, took place, but then they get to Ibrahim, which is to us Avraham Avinu, and in there, their story is different, by saying that really the Akeida, the offering test, was really with Ishmael, meaning that their version says that God told Avraham to bring Ishmael as an offering rather than Yitzchak. So this is the very first major dispute, and the reason why there's generally never going to be, or never really was, unless forced, a debate between the Jewish scholars and Islam, simply because there's no postulates, there's no things to agree on. They don't actually believe that our Torah is the original Torah, even though they've plagiarized much of it and put many of the good ideas and stories in their Quran. Now, of course, this was not something that is a new invention today, a new idea today. This has been a known thing since the beginning, even by the people of Islam that are actually studied the subject, know that there's a very serious problem of authenticity with their Quran. And most importantly, there's even disputes among the scholars about whether Muhammad actually existed, simply because they're putting a person there that can never be wrong, that can never make a mistake. So imagine being, as Dr. Kedal says, imagine being somebody that goes into the investment world and everything that he picks goes up in value and works out and he makes money on it. And imagine somebody, you ask him a question and he can never be wrong about any question. Imagine somebody that simply can never be wrong. And this is obviously not a human possibility. But needless to say, that's how they write about him extensively in many, many books throughout the years. But yet, even in their own Quran, they cannot address the very basic question of legitimacy of whether this book is really something that you could verify in any way, because quite frankly, one of the bizarre things that most people don't realize is that no one wrote about Muhammad and Islam outside of the Muslims at the time Muhammad lived. Same exact thing as Jesus. So if somebody was such a perfect person that can never make a mistake, that everything he says is right, and all of the exaggerations they say about him, needless to say, you would have somebody write about him. You'd have, I don't know, maybe the people that didn't like him write about him, or the people that were neutral write about him. Some newspaper, some magazine, some poster somewhere. No one wrote about him at the time he lived. And in fact, the only thing that they have of him is, in essence, the stories, the many stories they write about him hundreds of years after he lived, meaning that all of the scholars that actually taught their Quran orally were not there to actually write the actual Torah not the Torah, the Quran. And that's one of the things that shows you that this is a house of straws. It's a house of straws. But this is just a small little thing that a person needs to take into account. When you are going to decide that you're going to live your lifestyle in a certain way, whether you're going to live in, the way of believing Islam or Christianity or Buddhism or, of course, Judaism, you have to have legitimate questions, not just about the belief itself, but also what you expect to get as a result of all of this. What is the track record of the people that followed in his footsteps? And one of the things we see in the Holy Torah is very, very simple, significant, simple but yet significant differences between the beliefs of the Jewish people versus Islam and everyone else. And this is really the biggest part of the war and why they hate us. As one of the leaders of Hamas, Yimach Shemam V'Zichram, was just recorded in the last day or two, and this recording, he was on a news station for that's obviously pro Hamas and terrorism, and he was saying that they're not going to apologize about what they did in the massacre that they did on October 7th of thousands of Jewish people. They're not apologizing about it, and in fact, they're looking to do many more of them. And it's not just going to be October 7th, it's going to be October 1,000,000, meaning they're looking to do this many, many times, and until they completely destroy Israel. That's what their leader says. They're not looking for just Gaza, they're not just looking for just part of Israel, they're looking to simply annihilate all the Jews in the world. Because this is part of their belief system. This is part of their belief system, and anyone that actually studied the Quran in an unbiased way sees that even in the Quran, and the scholars that discuss it, they say that it's not possible to have any, Judaism in the world. You could have Judaism in the world as long as the Jewish people are strong, and you can't defeat them, so you could have a sort of fake and temporary peace until the Jewish people become weak. And as soon as they're weak, you have to attack them and destroy them. And the same concept with their belief system about anybody else. Because according to Islam, the only way is the Islamic way, and until they have world domination. And their biggest enemy is, of course, the Jewish people. So anyone out there that's still daydreaming about some type of eventual peace, or between the Ishmael's descendants and Am-Israel, Yaakov's descendants, is simply should just know that it's not possible. It's not possible to have peace because it's rooted within the Islamic belief system to never have peace, to always go to war. And this is one of the things that we actually already learned about Ishmael. About Ishmael himself, as it says in last week's parasha in chapter 16 of the Sefer Bereshit, the book of Genesis, where Akadosh Baruch Hu says through the angel who gives the message to Hagar that Ishmael, and in essence his descendants, is a Pere Adam Yado Bakol V'Yad Kol Bo, that he is a wild ass of a man. He's in essence an animal, and his hand is against everyone, and everyone's hand is against him. He is the enemy of the people. Now, of course, he's fooling billions of people to believe that he is really a victim, as this is part of their strategy and has always been part of their strategy. He's fooling billions of people to believe that he is looking for the good of the people, and despite the fact that the proof for anyone that's actually survived escaping Islam knows this, where it's a vicious religion that teaches hatred, that teaches children to murder, to rape, to aspire to simply attain more lust. But the reality is that anyone that's looking for pride pride of power and domination is attracted to this religion simply because it's the convenient, it seems to be the dominant, and it also does not tell you that you have to really change anything anytime soon. Even the ones that say you should change and be good and so on, and if you just flip over to the next page, it tells you, but go back to killing the Jews also, and anyone that doesn't believe in the same thing. Meaning, on one end, it tells you be good, on the other end, it tells you it's okay to be a murderer and a liar and a rapist and a pedophile and everything else. So, of course, if someone says, you know what, I'll keep some of it, and it's usually not the good parts. Point being is that this is the makeup of Ishmael, and unlike any of the other nations, the sages teach us that the nation of Ishmael doesn't aspire for more wealth or more honor, but rather aspires for more blood, meaning they are a vicious people that are looking for war. That's what they aspire to have, and while everybody wants to fool themselves, or many people want to fool themselves to think otherwise, we saw, and we continue to see the protests, the hateful messages being posted in different Jewish communities around the world, whether it's in Dagestan or Los Angeles, whether it's Las Vegas or it's in different parts of Canada, whether it's in on the news or on the internet. They're not looking for a free Palestine or freedom of that has peace, but rather they're looking for world domination, a domination that means that anyone that does not believe the same thing has to either change or has to, and convert to their religion, or has to die, whichever one comes first. Now, the beautiful Torah and the Jewish religion teaches us obviously otherwise. We're not here to convert the entire world. We're not here to force anyone to believe in anything. We have the truth. Anyone that wants to follow it will be rewarded for it. Anyone that doesn't will be punished. Simply, everyone has a choice though, including the Jewish people themselves. Everyone has a choice. It's not a free choice, but it's a choice. What does it mean it's not a free choice? Very simple. Just like Rabbi Akiva says in Pirkei Avot, in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world like a business, where he's giving you things in the world that you live in to know how he runs the real world, the upper heavens and the judgment of every single person and every single nation. Same concept. You see that if you work for, you have a business, but if you violate the laws of that business or the laws of that government that governs that business, you get caught, you'll get punished. The level of punishment depends on the level of the crime. The same concept of the world of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and how he judges people. If you violate the business, you violate the laws of the Torah, you'll get punished. How much punishment? Based on the level of crime. If you do good in the business, you'll get rewarded. How much you'll get rewarded? Based on the good that you do. If you do good in the world of the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will reward you. How much will you get rewarded? Based on the level of good that you do. So here the Holy Torah tells us about, through the story of Avraham Avinu's life and this particular segment of his life in Parashat VAYEIRA, it tells us different things that really help a person understand, that show you the difference between the Jewish mentality and Ishmael's mentality. Now, initially, we see that Avraham Avinu is recovering from the Brit Milah, recovering from the circumcision, and but is still looking to have more guests. He's the ultimate host, and he wants to have more guests, to the point where Hashem sends him guests despite the fact that he's suffering physically, because his spiritual suffering is of not having guests is worse than his physical suffering. So in the Jewish world, we have a mitzvah called achnasat orchim, that you have to, if you have the opportunity to host guests that don't have a place to stay, that don't have food to eat, certainly this is a very big mitzvah. If it's just your friends or family that that are just want to eat for free and want to join you for company, it's not the same level of mitzvah. But the point being is, the achnasat ochim, of the mitzvah of hosting, is certainly a mitzvah. It's well known that in the Muslim world, they also have an unusual way of hosting people, where to them, if somebody comes up to them and is looking to be hosted, they will host them. And in fact, some of their customs have the extreme ideology of hosting a guest, even if that guest is really their enemy. Meaning that as long as he's under their wing, he's in their house, he's in their guest for a day, for a month, for a year, for however he is, if somebody comes to attack him from the outside, they'll fight for this guest. But the moment the guest leaves, they can kill him. Now, this type of hosting is obviously thank you, but no thank you for anyone that's normal. While it's nice to have somebody protect you, while it's nice to have somebody feed you, it's not exactly so nice if you don't know whether they're going to end up killing you in the end or not. Now, where did they learn this from? Also from this week's parasha. We see that as HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends the angels to Avraham Avinu is told by these three angels several messages. One of them is that he's going to have a son from his wife Sarah. in a year from now. The second message is that he's going to be healed from this physical suffering that he has. But the third angel tells him about the inevitable destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, despite Avraham's prayer to perhaps gain Hashem's mercy for the people of Sodom, maybe there's righteous people there, so he doesn't punish the righteous people because there's wicked people there. The prayer does not succeed simply because there's no wicked people, there's no righteous people there, there's only wicked people there, except that there is Lot. There is Lot, and Lot gets a special favor from God where an angel is sent to him to save him and his family. And we see here that Lot saw these guests, and he knew that one of the laws of Sodom is that you're not allowed to have guests. Not allowed to have guests, but immediately he brings them in before anybody finds out, and he starts feeding them, and he's happy to see them. And the two angels come to Sodom in the evening. This is chapter 19. And Lot was sitting at the gate of Sodom, and Lot saw and stood up to meet them, and he bowed, face to the ground. He said, "Behold, my lords, turn about, please, to your servant's house, spend the night and wash your feet." Sounds like Avraham Avinu. Wake up early and go on your way. And he's adamant about them coming to visit him. Seems like the mentality of Avraham Avinu. But then shortly later, the people of Sodom find out, and they come and start banging on his door, telling Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out so that we may know them." And the commentaries say over there, what does it mean we may know them? That we may rape them. That's where the term sodomy comes from Sodom. They're all homosexuals, LGBTQs, originators after the destruction of the real original ones at the time of Noah. And they want to rape these angels. They want to do horrible things. And instead of doing anything normal, what does Lot do? He says, "Listen, my brothers, don't act wickedly. See, I have two daughters who have never known a man. Meaning they've never been married or with anybody. I shall bring them out to you, and do to them as you please. But to these men, do nothing." Meaning that this Lot has the mentality that's not like Avraham in any way, shape, or form. Quite the opposite. He has a mentality more like we described of the descendants of Ishmael, where there's zero respect or value for a woman, because the average Ishmaeli aspires to get 72 virgins in the next world. That's their ultimate prize for suicide bombing and murdering of innocent people. Which means that this guy can be married to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 women, however many women he's but all this time that he's married to these women, and he's using them for whatever physical needs he has, and whatever other things that he wants, whatever filthy desires he has, bringing kids to the world, doing whatever. All this time, he's telling them, "Listen, my ultimate goal is not to be with you. My ultimate goal is not to spend eternity with you. No, absolutely not. I'm looking forward to 72 other women." Now, any normal woman that has a husband who tells her, "I'm looking forward to go into heaven and never seeing you again. That woman will immediately leave and never see him again already now. But unfortunately, because of the conniving nature and violent temperament, many are unfortunately victims and have deranged mentalities themselves. And we see here that Lot has this deranged mentality where he's telling them, listen, I need to protect these guests. And the price of it is this useless two girls, which the Torah tells us they were actually very righteous girls. They were very modest, and that's the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose from them to bring the Mashiach, where you have on both sides, one of them was the grandmother of Ruth, that's the great-grandmother of David Amalek, and the other one was the grandmother of Naamah, who eventually would marry Shlomo Amelech, which from her comes the Mashiach. So from both of these righteous girls, daughters of Lot, are being offered as, a piece of meat. Here, go do what you want with these girls because I have to protect these guests. This is not such a different than the mentality of the Ishmaelim. Lack of value for women, and needless to say, lack of value for life. So long as you look good by honoring guests. Now, furthermore, we see that the people of Lot's family did not take the warning of the angels seriously and were laughing at him, even though he was bringing them the truth. He was bringing them a warning, and his daughters that were married and their husbands made fun of Lot, and they ended up getting destroyed as a result of it. From there we learn that one joke can destroy 100 or 1,000 Mussar lessons. Where if you have somebody teaching the truth, telling people to do tshuva, telling people that it's time to fix yourself and follow the Torah, and then one jokester makes a joke out of it, he could literally destroy the spiritual elevation of everybody else in the room. That's why the sages call that Midat Amalek, the character trait of Amalek, because that's what Amalek, who's also mixed into Ishmael, Edom and Ishmael have been mixed. This time that we find ourselves, the end of days, you actually find both within both Ishmael's descendants and Amalek within Ishmael. Same character trait, same mentality. This is not to say that it only exists within them, but the point is that many of the Chachamim say that after all of what's happened over the last couple of thousand years, there's a mix, of both Ishmael and Amalek within Ishmael. And one of the things that Ishmael's descendants like to do now is they like to take advantage of people's ignorance. And similar to Edom, similar to the missionaries that tried to capitalize on people's ignorance by mentioning a certain verse, whether it's in Isaiah or it's in Daniel or anywhere else. The Ishmaelim usually like to bring up the book of Chronicles, where things that seem to contradict themselves unless you're a learned Torah scholar. And they like to, in essence, create questions, create doubts in the minds of people before they tell them that really they're giving up the words of the living God. They're giving up the source of the of holy water, and they're going into emptiness, an empty cistern. They're going into a place of heresy, and actually in the opinion of one of the sages that's was just among us in the last generation, the Klausenberger Rebbe, He believed that Islam has become 100% idol worship, because even though they say they believe in one God, when you say that one God tells you to kill Jews and tells you that the Torah is not real, that they have something else, you realize that it's not the same God. And actually, unlike what the Rambam says that Islam is monotheism, the Klausenberger Rebbe and some other Chachamim say that it's still idolatry. Either way, we see here that all of the negative traits of Ishmael are not something that is a new thing. Rather, we see it in the books. Furthermore, after Lot is saved, we go back and we see that Lot is not happy about what happened. He doesn't leave Sodom happily. It says that he left it with tzoal. Tzoal means with sorrow, because he misses the old life. He misses the casinos. He misses the filth that was going on over there. So Lot wasn't exactly such a righteous person, but he was saved in the merit of Avraham Avinu as well as the merit of his two daughters, where from there we learn that it's very, very good idea for somebody to surround themselves and connect themselves to tzaddikim, to righteous people, because although a person may be wicked and actually deserve death or punishment, if he's surrounded by tzaddikim that care about him, Hashem may actually save him just for their sake, because they don't deserve to suffer. In the world of Islam, there's no such thing. There, they believe simply there's only one person that's perfect, one person that's righteous. They believe that that's Muhammad, even though he did a lot of vile things. Murdered countless people, went to unnecessary wars, and simply did everything that society till this day thinks is completely against humanity. But yet he convinced a bunch of people to follow him to the death. Now, after this, we see that Avraham Avinu's wife, Sarah, is captured again by Avimelech. And after Avimelech gets punished immediately by Hashem, he asks Avraham, why did you do this to me? Why did you do this to me? Why didn't you tell me that she's your wife? Now, how did Avimelech find out that she's his wife? Avraham said, she's my sister. Sarah said, he's my brother, which technically they were brother and sister, half brother and sister from the father's side, not the mother's side. So technically they didn't lie. But how did he find out? Due to the merit of Sarah and how righteous she was, Hashem spoke to Avimelech. But in his speech of what he told him, in his message that he told him, we find out a lot about the nature of people in general, if they're not going in the way of God, if they're not in control of themselves. Because when Avraham is asked by Avimelech, why did you do this to me? Avraham says, I said that there's no fear of God in this place, and they will slay me because of my wife. Why did Avraham say that? Simple. Rashi says, Avraham came to a new place. Instead of them asking him, do you need something to drink? Do you have a place to stay? Are you okay? You're hosting somebody. That's what you should be asking them. In fact, one of the Chachamim says that the first thing you should do when somebody comes to visit you is show them the bathroom. Show them the bathroom, because everyone obviously has bodily needs, and many times people are very embarrassed to ask about it. First thing you should do is show them the bathroom. But instead of showing Avraham where to eat, where to drink, where the bathroom is, where anything is, what do? Immediately they ask him about his wife. Is she a wife? Is she a sister? Who is she? Avraham says, since these people of Gerar only concerned with the availability of a woman that they just saw, they obviously have no fear of God. All they have is desires. All they care is about their physical needs. So that's the answer of Avraham. But the question still remains, how did Avimelech know that she's his wife really? That's because God told him. In chapter 20, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Avimelech that he's going to kill him because he took the woman, because she's a married woman. And Avimelech says to him, no, but why would you slay me? Did I not tell him that, did he not tell me that she's a sister? And she even said he's our brother. And you know that I'm innocent. And Hashem says, yeah, I know that you're innocent. But still, I prevented you from doing it. And I'm telling you again now that if you don't return her, I'm going to kill you. Now this is something I've read, Baruch Hashem, many, many times. But B'siyata D'Ishmaya, I learned something about it today. I looked at it and I said, wait a minute. God is talking to you. He's telling you he's going to kill you because you kidnapped a married woman. And now you're saying, no, I didn't touch, I didn't do nothing. You prevented me from doing it anyway. Fine. Why not just end it there and just say, okay, give her back? Why is Hashem again repeating to Avimelech, if you don't return her, be aware that you shall surely die. You and all that's yours, meaning complete annihilation of your whole nation. But you already told him you're going to kill him. Why repeat it again? You already stopped him from doing it. Why tell him you're going to kill him? Today, B'siyata D'Ishmaya, I realized that's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows that words are cheap. People say whatever they want. It doesn't cost anything. People make a lot of empty promises. In Islam, they have this term, I think it's called Zuviv, where they promise peace, not with a weaker nation, but with a nation they know they can't defeat. But this peace is a fake peace. It's a peace out of convenience because they know they can't win anyway. You say, we'll have peace. In so many words, until we catch you. Until we don't need to have peace with you because we can defeat you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows that whatever Avimelech is saying, claiming his innocence, is really not true. In fact, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows exactly what's in his mind. And he knows that despite Avimelech's words, he knows that Avimelech's true desires are to be with Sarah despite the fact that she's married, despite the fact that she's somebody else's. And if he doesn't warn him again about killing him and everything that's his, that he will lose everything, Avimelech will still violate what Hashem said. Meaning that his desire and addiction to intimacy, and to physical relations, to lust, is so animalistic that it controls him to the point where unless God threatened him again that he's going to kill him, and take everything that he has, he would simply not be able to control himself. This, Rabotai, teaches us also about human nature, where many people think, maybe telling people about punishment is not for this generation. Maybe people are weak, you should just tell them about nice things. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says otherwise. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says otherwise. In fact, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if you don't threaten people about the consequence of their actions, you're doing them a disservice. You're bringing them to Gehinnom with your hands. Because that's how I created people. They operate on fear. This is also one of the things that's mind-boggling in this war between Ishmael and Israel, that history has shown us time and time again that the only language that Ishmael speaks is a language of violence. That's how he speaks. If he knows he could win, that he's powerful, he will stop at nothing and annihilate everyone in his way, just like they've done since the beginning of their psychopathic belief system, so-called religion. That's how Muhammad operated, and that's how his followers operated, and that's how they do it to this day. They stop at nothing when they have the ability to. If they are outpowered, then they see there's no reason to fight, they'll just wait. They'll wait and wait and wait until they can do some damage. And despite everyone knowing this, throughout history, anyone that studied history, anyone that simply has looked at the rear view mirror of history, people still insist on creating peace in the Middle East. Peace that is an illusion. Peace that's not possible. Peace that's not even temporary. Because their belief system is war. Now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us all of this information in the Torah. But unfortunately, when people don't learn Torah, and they follow their own ideology, they follow their own emotions, they're going to constantly insist that they're smarter than God. That times have changed. That this time they really mean it. And they disregard the advice of the sages. When Rabbi Yosef alav Shalom told them that giving the Arabs, the Palestinians, Gaza, and removing the 8,000 or so families that live, Jewish families that live there, is not only against the Torah, not only causing damage to all of those Jewish families that live there and settled there, but is also bad for humanity, bad for the Jewish people, and is actually a life risk. 20 different commanders within the Zionist government disregarded and went against what Rabbi Vadia said, and went out there and gave back the land that they thought that they are supposed to give back, even though it was given to the Jewish people from God, who's the only one that owns anything, thinking that this is going to give them peace. But not even 24 hours passed after giving them this land, freeing up the place, giving them money, giving them a place they can turn into what many said could be the Singapore. Instead of doing that, they turned it into a war zone. And literally within 24 hours, they already attacked Israel. Why? The moment you show weakness and you submit to Ishmael's threats, that's their flag to go to war. That's their sign to go to war. In chapter 21, we learn about the birth of Yitzchak, something that was miraculous, not because Sarah was 100 years old, or 90 years old, I should say, because many other women have given birth at much later ages. Yocheved, the mother of Moshe Rabbeinu, gave birth when she was well over 100 years old. I believe it was something like 140 or 150 years old. The Naamah, the wife of Noach, gave birth to the 3 sons when she was 1,000 years old. And there were other women throughout history that gave birth at much later ages. The miraculous nature of Sarah's giving birth was because she didn't have a uterus. Hashem created her without a uterus. She didn't have the pieces of the body that's required to carry a baby. And this miracle was not just that, but rather he beautified her, made her young again. This is the reason why, even though she was 90 years old when Avimelech saw her, he couldn't control himself because she was so beautiful, even at 90 years old. And he simply could not control himself. The Chachamim say that there were 4 women that were the most beautiful women in history. One of them is Abigail, one of the wives of David HaMelech. She was extraordinarily beautiful, beyond anyone's imagination. But if you compare her to Sarah, there was nothing to compare. Nothing to compare. Sarah was something out of this world. Sarah gives birth to Yitzchak, and to make sure that everyone knows that Avraham is Yitzchak's father, Hashem makes Yitzchak's face literally a replica of Avraham, so everyone knows it's his son. And to make sure that everyone knows that Sarah is the one that really carried this baby, he gives her the superhuman power of being able to breastfeed all of the other women's children. And why are all of the other women's children suddenly needing of help? Because when HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the blessing to Sarah of having a children, he also gave the blessing to countless other women that couldn't have children, that didn't have children, to have children at the same time. And from there we learn that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends shefa, sends a gift, a sustenance to the tzaddikim, everyone benefits from it. When he sent the shefa, the gift, the miracle of birth of a child to Sarah, countless women also got the same blessing after being barren their whole lives. The Gemara in Masechet Ta'anit says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, the whole world lives because and eats and is sustained because of the merit of Rabbi Chanina, my son. And Rabbi Chanina, my son, he's satiated with just some carobs. And of course we see that, the sages are always happy with their share. They even minimize their share, even when they can get more. Their spiritual connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is priority over anything material in this world. But in addition to that, we also see that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that the whole world eats because of the merit of Rabbi Chanina in that generation, we see that when Hashem gives the blessing to Rabbi Chanina, everyone else benefits. Same like we saw with Sarah. And where do we see this in day-to-day life? Very simple. If you look at society, and history at the same time, and you simply follow the Jewish people and where they were able to build communities, more than just a little mom and pop shop with maybe 10 families, where they were literally able to build communities, similar to how they did in Bavel, or how they did in Germany, in different parts of Europe, in Russia, in Spain. You follow history, you follow the Jewish people. It always ends with the Jewish people getting kicked out, tormented, pogroms, inquisitions, holocausts. But before that, you see that when the Jewish people come to a place, usually those places are not doing so well, financially, socially, in any way, shape, or form. But once the Jewish people come there, all of a sudden, whatever status the place was in, whether it was mediocre or terrible, or even if it was good, you see that all of a sudden the economic status of that place rises drastically. And you see this time and time again throughout history. The economic status of the Jewish people is very difficult at first. As Hashem blesses them with more, everyone else benefits too. And all of a sudden, Rome is on the map. Greece is on the map. Babylon, today's Iraq, is on the map. Egypt is on the map. Germany's on the map. Russia is on the map. No one cared about any of those places before the Jewish people showed up. And you see the extraordinary blessing that the Jewish people bring to society. And you wonder to yourself, are these people stupid? Why would they kick out the Jews? Don't you realize that before Yosef came, you are on the verge of going extinct, going into a famine, struggling, you barely had anything to begin with. Now that Yosef came, you have become the wealthiest country in the world. But then comes a new villain that the people view as a hero, who doesn't remember Yosef, a new Paro that doesn't remember Yosef, and turns the Jews into slaves. Ultimately, it looks like he's winning. He's winning for a long time. He's enslaved them. He's empowered himself. He's taking control of all their property. But it ends with a complete annihilation of Egypt. It ends with a complete annihilation of Assyria, a complete annihilation of Babylon, a complete annihilation of Rome, of Greece. Complete annihilation of all of these major civilizations once they kicked out the Jews. The blessing is gone with the Jews. And one of the countries that's at biggest risk right now of losing that blessing, there's multiple countries that have that risk. You have France have that risk. England has that risk. Certainly Canada has that risk. But the one that has the biggest risk is America. Because while America calls itself, publicly calls itself Israel's ally, the civilians are not necessarily in agreement with the government on that issue. As you see, literally hundreds of thousands of them gather in college campuses, screaming their desire to annihilate the Jewish people. You see anti-Semitism growing so rapidly that sometimes you're confused about whether you are in the 1930s, right before 6 million Jews were murdered in a Holocaust, or you're in America. You see swastikas everywhere. You see support for jihad, Islam, everywhere. You see people screaming their desire to kill Jews even though the Jews didn't do anything to them. even though these people are not even Muslim. Where does this hatred come from? HaKadosh Baruch Hu leads his people with a stick and a staff. He says to them, my staff is the Torah. I have the rules of the Torah. In the Torah I said that I will bless you, that I love you, you're my chosen people, and I will send you blessing wherever you are. And we see that blessing. Throughout all of history, the Jewish people have had very high highs and very, very, very low lows. They've made the biggest contribution to society. And it's not an argument, it's not a debate. Whether you consider achievement as a moral law, being the Torah, which, whether you agree with Judaism or not, if you're Christian or you're Muslim, the foundation of your belief system comes from the Torah, or you view the achievements as things of systemic, such as the court system. Court system comes from the Torah. We see Parashat Yitro. Yitro creates the Supreme Court system, the judicial system, that we still use till this day. In the scientific world, no one has contributed more than the Jewish people. Where you see nearly 200 Nobel Prize winners, many of the different Jewish scientists. Nearly 200 Nobel Prize winners are Jewish people. If you compare that per capita versus any other nation, no one compares. If the same quantity, percentage-wise, of Ishmaelim would have won the Nobel Prize win as the percentage of Jews, you'd literally have hundreds of thousands of Nobel Prize winnings by the Muslims. But you don't. I believe there's maybe only one or two of them that ever won a Nobel Prize win, and one of them is Yasser Arafat, the chief terrorist of Palestine. So you see that there's an extraordinary blessing that comes on the Jewish people, but yet, at some point, those blessings disappear and even turn into a curse, where the success of the Jews turns into a pretext that fuels anti-Semitism. People say to them, oh, you control the world, you control the banks, you control Hollywood, you control this, you control that. They don't realize God controls everything. He's the one that chose for us to succeed. But why is he choosing now for us to lose that success, for people to lose their homes, for people to lose their comfort in life? Because like I said, as Hashem says to David HaMelech, there's a stick, that's to hit you, and then there's a staff. When Jewish people follow the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu continues to use the staff to direct them, to go right, to go left, to make the right decisions, to make the right contributions. But when the Jewish people start taking those gifts that Hashem gave them and misuse them, instead of being moral, they become immoral. Instead of being just, they become unjust. Instead of following the Torah, they violate the Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to show up with a stick. As I've said in my lectures in the past, when bringing up the subject of the Holocaust during the series of the era of Mashiach, we saw that one of the things that fueled the Nazi hatred of the Jewish people was pornography and usury, lending money with high interest. two businesses that were dominated by the Jews. Certainly there were other people in those businesses, but the Jews were a dominant force in those industries. Now, of course, this does not justify the hatred and the malice that he had, and I'll give you guys some other reasons, other things that why he hated, that I learned. But the point is that these things justified the hatred. Not just in the eyes of Hitler, not just in the eyes of Himmler, not just in the eyes of the other vicious monsters that led the Nazi army, but in the eyes of all of the millions and millions of followers. Now the truth is, if you look at a book called The Sichot with Hitler by Roshink, Dr. Roshink, Conversations with Hitler by Dr. Roshink, he talks about the different conversations that he had with Hitler, one-on-one, which Hitler repeated many times. And on page 21, Hitler says, we must be vicious and find within ourselves and in our hearts the cruelty in order to fulfill our destiny. Hitler repeats many times that cruelty is what is necessary in order for those people to fulfill their destiny. Another place in that book he says, we're barbarians, and that's our honor. And we're here to change the mind of the generations of the young people. Anyone that has read the history of the German people, Nazis, they know that the Nazis were really barbarians, just like the Gemara. The Gemara in Masechet Megillah says that don't give the plead with Hashem, don't give the power to Edom, because once you give them the power, they'll want to destroy the world. And the response is that yes, Hashem is going to give them power, but the fight between Edom in itself is eventually going to make them lose the power. Who is themselves? He says it's 300 barbarian nations that combined and nearly destroy the world. And that's exactly what happened. The Roman Empire that destroyed the Bet HaMikdash continued until 500 BC approximately, 486. So it continued for another 500 years after destroying the Bet HaMikdash. Then different German barbarian states or people, Germans, but not part of the Roman Empire, they attacked the empire, caused animosity, which broke up the Roman Empire for nearly the next 200 years. After a couple of hundred years, they reorganized again and with the Christian church and called themselves the Holy Roman Empire. These barbarians, German barbarians, gathered together 300 barbarian states and people, continued the Roman Empire for the next nearly 1,000 years. Those 300 barbarian nations, German barbarian nations, consolidated to 37 in the early 1800s, and then later on in Versailles they consolidated further to 26 before ultimately becoming Nazi Germany. But all this time the Romans, Germans, it's all the same thing. It's all barbarians. And Hitler, in his conversations with Roshing, Dr. Roshing, says, yes, we're barbarians and that's our honor. And page 193 says, we are the enemies of the soul. Conscience is a Jewish invention, and we must get rid of it. He says the 10 Commandments, the plates of the 10 Commandments, the tablets of the 10 Commandments, destroyed and have to be removed from our hearts. We must be cruel people. This is the mindset of Hitler. And some of the biggest supporters of Hitler were the Islamic Mufti, who actually trained Hitler's soldiers how to kill Jews. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu allow this to happen? And Torah tells us very simply. There's the blessing, there's the curse. There's the stick, there's the staff. When we follow the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows the Torah to direct us as the staff. When we don't follow the Torah for an extended period of time, and we continue violating the Torah, inventing new Torahs, new ideologies, new systems, new things, as if the Torah is not the same exact Torah, Hashem starts leading with the staff. And the more we ignore, he starts leading with the stick. And he starts hitting us. And the more we ignore the stick, the bigger the hits. In a Sefer by Rav Schlesinger, he writes that at one time that he met with Rav Mordechai Miller of Gateshead, and he asked him, what are they teaching in their seminaries and their yeshivas? He says, do you teach hashkafot, ideologies, in your yeshivot? And the rabbi says, no, we don't teach hashkafot, because why not? We need to learn. He goes, no, we don't learn hashkafot, because I learned from Rav Dessler that the word hashkafot is a prohibited word in Judaism, because there is really only one hashkafa, there's really only one ideology in Judaism, and that's doing the will of Hashem by fulfilling the entire Torah. There is no such thing as ideologies. There's no ideologies. There's no, listen, over here we teach you about fear of heaven. Over there they teach about love. Over there we teach chesed. And over there we teach something else. No. There's only one ashkafa in Judaism. To say that there's ashkafot is forbidden. The same was said by one of the other chachamim at the time, who said to another rabbi about their teaching, what are you teaching here in this yeshiva? He says, we delve into and review the different shitot in Judaism, meaning the different thinking processes, strategies in Judaism. He says to him, that's kfirah, that's heresy. Since Judaism doesn't have shitot, it has a shita. There is no shitot, there is no strategies and thought processes. No. There is one thought process in Judaism. What is it? Do the will of Hashem by fulfilling the entire Torah. That's why when HaKadosh Baruch Hu, many times in the Torah, when he tells us to fulfill the Torah and the mitzvah, it doesn't say mitzvot. It says fulfill the mitzvah. Why the mitzvah? Mitzvah is singular. There's not one mitzvah. There's many mitzvot. Why? Because he wants you to look at the entire Torah as a single unit, as a single thing. Don't think, oh no, as mitzvot, so maybe I'll take some and lose some. And like some of the heretics say, listen, there's 613 mitzvot, so he's violating one by being LGBTQ. What's the big deal? No, it's not. It's one mitzvah. It's the whole thing. It's the entire Torah. To say that there's different strategies of teachings, and you can teach about this, and he can teach about that, and everyone has their own way, Chachamim said, no, there's no such thing. There's no such thing. And the Rav, the Magid Miduvna, who had a way to explain things in stories for every single question you possibly have. He said about those people that instead of bringing people closer to the Torah, they bring the Torah closer to them. They lower the Torah closer to them. The Mishnah in Masechet Avot says, Aaron HaKohen, he was a lover of peace, a chaser of peace, and he brought Am Yisrael to the Torah. Meaning, despite the fact that he was a lover of peace and a chaser of peace, he didn't bring the Torah down to people. He didn't dumbify it. He didn't liberalize it. He didn't reform it. He didn't modernize it. Rather, he brought people to the Torah. He elevated them to the Torah. But there are certainly people out there that always, in every generation, try to liberalize the Torah, modernize the Torah, reform the Torah. The Megid Miduvna says this is like a fool who went to a hat store and bought, like the hat, and said he wants to buy it in every color available. So he bought a whole slew of hats, and he got home, and he wanted to pick one of the hats, and he put it on, and he realized it's too small. Then he put another hat, and he also realized this is too small. Then he realized all the hats are the same size, and they're all going to be small. He just bought 50 hats, and they're all small on him. All different colors, but they're all small. So this fool thought, okay, you know what? Fine. He went back to the market, and he went looking for one of the steel workers. And he saw one of the steel workers working, smashing the steel into place. Big machines, big metal. And he gets the steel guy's attention. He says, listen, stop for a second. Let me put my head, instead of you smashing this piece of steel, I want you to smash my head. And the steelworker says, why? Why? He says, because I want you to smash my head so it becomes a little smaller, so my head would fit these hats. I just bought a bunch of hats and they're too small on me, so I want my head to be smaller. And the steelworker says, you realize what kind of a fool you are? You don't need to make your head smaller. Just take the hats back to the store and tell them to replace them with bigger hats, or to fix the hats and make them bigger, expand them. Don't try to change reality of your head being a certain size. Change the circumstances. Change yourself as far as the things that need to be changed. Don't change the Torah by modernizing it, or by reforming it, or by liberalizing it. Change yourself to fit the same Torah. And this is why, Rabotai, when a bunch of reformers, liberal-minded Jews came to Rav Eisel Harif, and they threatened him, saying that if he doesn't change the prayer to be much shorter and more liberal, they're all going to abandon Judaism and go to Christianity. And to their dismay and surprise, Rav Eisel Harif started laughing and celebrating. He said, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate what you guys are doing. Now I'm going to have a bigger fish, bigger part of the fish. He said, bigger part of the fish? What are you talking about? He said, no, because when Mashiach comes, Hashem is going to take the Leviathan and he's going to give each one of us a piece. It's part of the celebration of the Mashiach coming. So now that you guys are going to go to Christianity and abandon Judaism altogether, obviously my piece will be bigger. So go. You want to abandon Judaism? Go. I don't need you. Well, why can't you change the prayer? He says, we don't change the Torah. we change ourselves. Because Torah, one of the 13 principles of faith that will never change. If you are going to teach a new version of a Torah, it's not the Torah. As the Mishnah says at the end of the Shas Mishnayot, Chadash asur min Torah. Something new is forbidden according to the Torah. And that's what the Chazon Ish took and applied it to Mussar. And says, if the teachings that you're teaching is not based on the foundation of the Torah, it's not based on the Masorah, the tradition of the Torah, it's something new, then it's not Torah. It's forbidden. If you're not teaching about the same foundations that our sages have taught throughout all the generations, about Yirat Shamayim, about having Emunah in Hashem, about fixing yourself, about doing tshuva, if you're teaching something else that there's somehow a shortcut by using drugs to elevate yourself, or by saying God needs you, or by unifying with the nations, even though the nations are missionaries and trying to do everything possible for you to abandon the Torah, and you're unifying with them, then guess what? You're not teaching Torah. You're teaching something new that's not Torah. And when a person realizes that in the Torah there's only one ashkafa, there's only one truth, there's only one shita, it's much easier for him or for her to identify the clear difference between good and evil, the clear difference between Am Yisrael and Am Ishmael, and the clear reality that there's no peace that can ever be with the wicked people, no matter what they say and what they promise. En shalom, amar Asher l'reshaim. No peace, Hashem said to the wicked. So here, Rabotai Karim, we see that Ishmael get punished by God after he started using little Yitzchak, 13 years younger than him, as target practice. And Hashem took away his power, his abilities to even move, and he was shrunken to the point where his mom Hagar, when she was kicked out, carried him on her shoulder. Ishmael was on the verge of dying because he made Sarah, the righteous Sarah, sad for how he treated her son. That's why she kicked him out. But then it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu heard the prayer of the Nal. God heard the cry of the youth, meaning that Ishmael himself did tshuva. And that's why he lived. He did tshuva. And Hagar suddenly saw a well of water. And Chachamim say that Hashem didn't miraculously create this well of water. It was always there. It's just that so long as she was on the wicked path, so long as she was supportive of the wicked path, the blessing was not available for her to see. Meaning from there that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has the blessing constantly come down in the merit of his people. Those that support the Jewish people, support the Torah, support the truth, will benefit endlessly from the constant shefa that Hashem sends to this world. Those that don't support it, those that ignore it, those that forsake it, will not only not see the blessing, even if it's in front of their eyes, but they'll actually end up losing everything. This part of the message is really for all of mankind. Whether you are Jewish or not Jewish, you should know, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has already chosen the Jewish people as his chosen people. But it does not mean that comes without a price. A Jew that follows the Torah is blessed. A Jew that does not follow the Torah is bringing a curse upon himself. The ultimate goal for that Jew is to serve Hashem. When he's not serving Hashem, he himself loses more than everybody else. But that's also why it's an opportunity for every other Jew and every other non-Jew to try to do whatever they can to inspire every Jew to go in the way of God, to go towards the Torah and Mitzvot, to do tshuva. Because when you help them do tshuva, they will now get an extraordinary amount of blessing that's already coming down, directed towards them. They'll be able to see the well that's always been there, the well of life. And when they get a blessing, everyone around them gets a blessing. And the one that helped them see the well gets even more than everybody else. If you help Am Yisrael do tshuva, you're not only saving them, you're saving yourself. You're not only rewarding them, you're rewarding yourself a lot more. When you go against Am Yisrael, when you want to kill Am Yisrael, when you join the enemies of Am Yisrael, you're not only hurting Am Yisrael. In fact, you're hurting yourself much more. Because whatever blessings you were supposed to get, it's only a matter of time before you lose them, and much more. Just like all of the greater, bigger nations before you did. May it be His will that people would finally realize this, both the Jews and the Gentiles, and realize that there's no such thing as peace with people that want to kill us. But there is an opportunity for individuals to follow the Torah, to follow their role in the Torah, and do what they're supposed to, whether they're Jew or Gentile. No one is obligated to convert to Judaism unless they want to. Unless they can. If they desire to, you're more than welcome to do it. But each and every single person can still attain the extraordinary rewards in this world and the next by supporting the Torah, and especially supporting Jewish people to come back to Torah. May it be His will that we all do it and succeed. With that being said, I'll look at some questions to see if there's anything I could have the siyata d'ishmaya to respond to. Bezrat Hashem, Hashem will give me the ability to do it. Oh, by the way, the side note for all of you that are here in Israel and have been asking me for the last couple of months to do a English lecture live tomorrow at 8:30 Israel time. 8:30 p.m. Israel time, we're going to have a shiur at our kollel here in Givat Shaul. Look online for the information and the address. It's limited seating, so get there on time. And Bezrat Hashem will have a live event. Bezrat Hashem. Question, Rabbi. I've always wondered about Olam Haba is going to be here on this planet, but made new, and will be for all the ones who resurrected. Okay. All right. So there is multiple parts. There is, first off, if somebody dies right now, and they're a righteous person, they don't go to Olam Haba. They go to heaven. There are two heavens. There's a heaven in this world, and there's also heaven in the upper world. It depends on the level of righteousness of which heaven they get to. There's a Gan Eden Tachton, Gan Eden Elyon. Heaven, lower heaven, and upper heaven. Just like there's a lower Gehenna and an upper Gehenna, depending on the wickedness. Now, that's if somebody is already passed away, left this world, and is merited to go to heaven, that's where they go. Then there is the, after Mashiach comes, many sages say within 40 years after Mashiach comes, there's going to be a resurrection of the dead. And the resurrection of the dead is going to have stages. It's not going to be 1 second everything. It's going to be certain stages. But anyway, after the resurrection of the dead, this world continues existing for another 1,000 years. So the people that have passed away get resurrected and they live in this world in complete peace and harmony, but still in the physical world, but in a place where there's no evil inclination, there's no war, it's a world of Torah, but it's a physical world. But that's only for 1,000 years. After that 1,000 years, then there is Olam Haba. And Olam Haba is not heaven. Olam Haba is a completely different place. No one is there yet. It's a completely different place. There's the lower heaven, upper heaven. There's eventually the resurrection of the last 1,000 years in this world. Complete peace and harmony in the physical world. And then there is the Olam Haba, which is a completely different stage that's after the culmination of this world, or completion of this world. Why does the Nektuei Kalta Jews, whom I think are Haredi, stand with Palestine and say Hashem is not giving Klal Yisrael the land yet? Okay, so Nektuei Kalta originally started from the Satmar Chassidut, but they became heretical, rogue break-off of Satmar, and in 1967, according to the Gregorian calendar, the Rebbe Satmar threw them out because they were rogue, they were heretics, and they were not following his teachings, even though he was against the land of Israel as far as the Zionism, controlling it and so on. Still, what they did was completely different mentality. They were and still are connecting to the wicked, evil people that are enemies, not just of Zionism. They're enemies of all Jews. You know, the Palestinians don't want to just kill Zionists. They want to kill all Jews. In fact, one of the things I learned recently is that the leaders of Islam, whether it be in Gaza or in other places around the world, they don't believe that the Jewish people of today are connected to the Jewish people of the Torah. They think that there's two different people. There is Bnei Israel, that's the people of the Torah, and then there's the Yehud. The Yehud is the people that are living today. And they don't believe that those are the same people. They believe that those are two completely different people. The people of the Yehud are evil. They're the sons of monkeys and pigs, and they're enemies of Islam. Now, little do they know that the word Yehud comes from the word Yehuda, the name Yehuda, which is one of the 12 tribes. That's the son of Israel. Yaakov is also called Israel, and one of his 12 sons is Yehuda. That's where the word Yehud or Yehuda or Jew comes from. But these morons do not know anything, and therefore they think it's completely disconnect between the two. Point being is, this is even another reason of why a peace between the descendants of Ishmael and Am Yisrael can never have peace. Can never have peace. It's not possible. You could have temporary peace, which means that ceasefire until the descendants of Ishmael, whether it be the Palestinians or the Jordanians or Egyptians, whoever else, until they see weakness, like they've seen recently in the Jewish world, weakness in politics, weakness in structure, weakness among the community. There's a civil war practically. When they saw this weakness, they saw it's a time to attack. meaning are fighting among each other, between the lefty liberals and the religious people, between the different political ideologies, between the different parts of our communities and so on, that have become so public over the last year, the weakness in economy and so on. All of this were the trigger signs of why Hamas, Yimach Shimam V'Zichram, chose now to be the time to attack the Jewish people and not a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years. They chose now to do this because they saw weakness. And that's why also they still feel, despite being bombed every single day, they're not affected because they have entire cities under the ground, and even more so, the leaders, the real evil ones, are not even there. They're not even in Gaza. They live in different places around the world. They live in Paris, they live in London, they live in different parts of the Middle East, in $20 million mansions. They're completely disconnected from the people. But like all evil kings are, they tell people to go kill themselves while they sit in a air-conditioned palace. Either way, the Netuei Karta, joining forces with evil people from Iran, from Palestine, that want the complete annihilation of Jewish people. Not only is this a desecration of God, is this something that is being connected to evil people, but also it's complete stupidity because they don't realize that any time the enemies of Am Yisrael can make Am Yisrael look bad, they'll take advantage of it. Which means if they could make Am Yisrael look bad to support their cause by so-called meetings with these so-called religious Jews, they'll do it. But they don't realize that eventually the first people to be slaughtered by Ishmael are the very same people that they're supposable friends with, meaning that Netuei Karta will eventually be slaughtered by the same people that they're befriending, that are the enemies of Am Yisrael. But either way, they're not Haredi, they're not anything, they're heretics. They violate Shabbat, they do things that are completely against the Torah, and they're considered rogue heretics that pretend to be religious Jews. Why does Islam think that Lot was a prophet? I mean, they think a lot of things. We can't explain foolishness. And it has no end. Okay. What if Palestinians are Amalek and not Ishmael? Like I said earlier, some of the Chachamim say that the part of the people of Ishmael have been combined with Amalek, so you could find both within Ishmael. Okay, Lot said to his wife, "Give a little salt to these guests." What does it mean, give a little salt? As far as to host the guests, he gave them matzah, he washed their feet to make sure they used to, Avraham taught him that, because idol worshippers used to worship the dust on their feet. So this was part of the hosting. This was part of the hosting gestures that they would do to make people feel like they're royalty. Okay. Does a serpent in the Garden of Eden have free will to be cursed by God? What really happened there? Of course, as free. So it's I explained it in a few weeks ago that a couple of things. the serpent was supposed to be, or was originally, the king of all the animals. And but he was extraordinarily beautiful, but he had human features. Number one, he had arms and legs similar to a human. His head also looked very different. He was extraordinarily beautiful, and he was able to speak like human beings. And he desired Chava. The Gemara says that he desired Chava, and therefore he wanted to get Adam killed so he could marry Chava. And that's why he enticed her to feed Adam the fruit, because Hashem said that if you eat this fruit, I'll kill you on that day. But a day for Hashem is, David HaMelech says, 1,000 years. So the point is that the serpent tried to get Adam Rishon killed, and that's why he was punished. He did it in a dishonest way. He said lashon hara about Hashem, and he got punished. So certainly he has a free choice. He certainly has free choice, or I should say choice. He chose to do what he did, and that's why he got punished. If he was programmed to do that, and he didn't have a choice, then he wouldn't be punished. So Hashem doesn't punish somebody that's not capable of making choices. For example, if somebody is born with some type of chas v'shalom, as some type of mental deficiency or physical deficiency where they're incapable of determining the difference between right and wrong. You know, someone that has a cerebral palsy or autism or some type of major disease that makes them incapable of understanding the difference between right and wrong. Number one, that person is not judged for not fulfilling the mitzvot. They're not expected to fulfill the mitzvot because they obviously are incapable. And two, the Arizal says in Shama Gilgulim that those people are usually very high level neshamot of righteous people that died already and had to be reincarnated in order to do a tikkun for a certain amount of time, where they live in this body that is suffering a lot in this world because its inability to communicate and live and so on. But they're here to complete a tikkun in order for them to enter a higher level in Gan Eden. So usually those people are very, very high level neshamot. In fact, there is a scientific proofs of this, because there's been several of them throughout the years that utilize these special computers to communicate with everybody. And some of them were even ones, there's a few that are alive right now, that are able to tell people, communicate through the computer, and tell people about different things that it says in the Torah, or it says in that's in upper worlds, and even give sometimes warnings of things that are actually bound to happen. So there's several famous ones. Point is that the person that cannot move his body and is completely incapable of doing any servitude of Hashem is not judged for it. But if he is capable of doing some, he's judged on what he can do. Meaning, if he can, put on tefillin just on his head because he doesn't have any arms, then he must put his tefillin on his head. He can't just not put on tefillin just because he can't put it on his arms. He has to do whatever he possibly can. If he's able to learn Torah, but he's not able to, let's just say again, put on tefillin, then he has to learn Torah. If he's capable of, let's say you're reading the Torah, but he can't speak it because he's a mute, then he has to learn Torah that way. Point is that everybody is judged based on, what tools they have and what inabilities they have. And if a person utilizes the gifts that Hashem gave him or her, certainly they can get themselves into heaven and into the best possible place. Because every difficulty that a person has in their life, whether it's a physical difficulty or otherwise, you should know, the Chachamim teach us, especially in the Gemara Masechet Nida, which is that you chose it. Meaning the difficulties that you have, whether it be financial difficulties or monetary or physical difficulties or marriage difficulties, in essence, you chose these difficulties before you came to this world, because you were told this is what your tikkun is. You could either suffer in Gehenna or Kafakela or something else, for X amount of time, or you can go to the world of the world that we live in, the physical world, and endure difficulties of financials, endure difficulties of health, endure difficulties of whatever it is, in order to avoid going to Gehenna. And the Chachamim say that a lot of people don't realize, but everyone is a Gilgul, everyone's a reincarnation. Some are short-term reincarnation, meaning that they come to this world just to fulfill a mission for, let's say, a few hours, a few days, a few months, or even a few years. And some are supposed to live here an entire life with certain other difficulties. Point being is that everyone has what they themselves asked for in order to be able to overcome the obstacles and serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to their fullest. And they have the choice. They have the choice to do so. Even after they get reincarnated, they have the choice to either serve Hashem again or Chas v'Shalom ignore. For your shiur tomorrow, is women permitted to attend at what time? Yeah, of course, women are permitted to attend. There's going to be a section for women, as all of my shiurim have one section for men, one section for women. Time is 8:30, I believe. There's a poster in the group, posted on the WhatsApp chat for our the Descendants WhatsApp chats. The details are over there. Rav, is it that a Jewish woman called Zinab bint Harit poisoned Muhammad? Okay. After he killed her family and he died 2 years later. Okay. I'll read that after. Let's see. Why is keeping Shabbat stealing for the goyim? Very good question. I've answered this in a few places. I actually have several short clips of answering this question in detail. If you just go to my channel and you type in the word Noahide, Shabbat, or you just type the word Shabbat, you'll see that there's several short videos discussing this question. But the point is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a covenant with Am Yisrael by giving them the Shabbat, meaning the Shabbat was a special gift that Hashem gave only to the Jewish people, while all of mankind lives in a world of 7 days a week and 24 hours a day. But only the Jews have the Shabbat as a holy day, being the Shabbat, the seventh day. The other nations don't have a Shabbat holy day, meaning they could work on every single day, they could barbecue, they could do whatever they want on the day. Because this particular day of Shabbat was a special gift that Hashem gave only to Am Yisrael. So when a Gentile celebrates the Shabbat, similar to how a Jew does, by having a Kiddush, by drinking the wine specifically as part of the Kiddush, or by doing certain prayers without actually converting to Judaism, then that non-Jew is considered as if they're stealing. They're stealing from the Torah, mitzvot that they're not allowed to do. Okay, Baruch Hashem, I've answered all of these questions. Thank you very much for learning with me. May Hashem bless each and every single one of you that's come here to learn. Please share these lectures with everybody. Get more people closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As I said earlier, it's not only good for them, it's good for you, it's good for the entire world, for people to know the truth. And BeEzrat HaShem, more and more people will know the truth of the Torah, get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and abandon the wicked ways, abandon the delusional ways, and abandon any ways that's not the way of God. B'chava tzlachat to everybody, and kol tuv.